Hi. So, as you can tell, we're laid back, we're chilling, we're very casual right now. I feel like you guys should do the same. Grab your favorite beverage, your favorite snack. I don't know how long this review is going to be, but just in case, sit back, relax, put the kids to bed, feed the dog, and get all cozy in your bed sheets and just listen to me blab about this movie for a little while. Because I've got a lot of things to say. And I also want to do a spoiler section and a non-spoiler section to this review, because all the things that I really like about this movie, I can only fully express in the in the spoiler section. So in fairness to those that are very, very hyped for this, I don't want to say anything that would strip you of the experience going in. So I'm going to do like my simple review at the beginning, and then I'm going to dig into the stuff that I really like that I have to spoil. Not that this is a movie that has crazy revelations. If you're even somewhat in tune with the creepypasta or just the lore as a whole, pretty much everything you want is in this film. The stuff that I really loved was character focused and how that motivated and enhanced the creepy stuff. And just for that, I do want to speak on, but I'm going to do it in the spoiler section. So, Backrooms is about a furniture store owner who discovers the backrooms in the sublevels of his store. He decides to research and explore. And that's just the first half of the story. The second half is actually carried, or part of the story is carried by his therapist, who, a lot like a priest in a demonic possession film who deals and struggles with their faith, she somewhat struggles with the meaning of her career path. And is she even worthy of it? Does she feel like she can help? These aren't elements that the movie throws right in your face. These are just things that are dropped with subtlety through flashbacks, which I'm never a fan of. I genuinely don't like flashbacks in films, especially when they are cut in between the main story. I feel like it always distorts the pace, but I digress. You get the feeling that she is struggling with the meaning of her job. He discovers this liminal space in his furniture store and decides to research it and record it so that he can sort of validate himself to his therapist. He goes on this suicide mission with his little crack team of videographers that record all his commercials. And you get the film that you are expecting from this, which is an exploration of the liminal space, the very much corporate spaces without the windows and the endless hallways and the optical illusions, and the further you go in, the less you recognize the space, and we get all of that, and visual dissociation and derealization. Like, all of these elements are there. You also have this ominous entity that is alluded to in the trailer, first very subtle, and then eventually you do get to see it. And I think that this movie is strong in its first act. I think this movie is for the first half, one of the best X-Files episodes, one of the best Twilight Zone episodes you'll ever see. And then the second half is where the movie failed and fell flat for me, because what it did in the first half was so strong. And I can pinpoint exactly when that happened. And it's in a specific dinner sequence in this film that I thought was such a high mark, and it felt so good that I thought we were reaching the conclusion, the last act. I thought it was the last act because it felt like such a big moment where themes and characters and the horrors are finally sort of welding together. They're no longer separate individual pieces. They're finally coming together, but in a way that I felt would have been more fitting than the actual ending we received. I think the hype behind this movie, for some, will kill it. I do think that the hype, at least for me, is a little bit too much for what I watched. That's not to say that I don't like it, because there are things in this film that I think it does evidently well, and there are so many things in this movie that I found evidently fun. And that's vindicated by the reaction by the audience in the theater. You know, everyone was very involved in the experience. This movie lives in this sort of sedentary state of mundanity, where everything is yellow and everything is the shots. There's a lot of neutral shots. There's a lot of eye level shots. There is a insignificance, a purposeful insignificance to the way that the movie is shot and framed, where everything is supposed to feel ordinary and boring, and somehow adds color because of it, because of the story. This is all that the aesthetic is fully tied to the themes that it's exploring, in the same way the liminal space is tied to the themes it's exploring, and the entity itself is tied to the themes that it's exploring. These characters, everything here has a reason to exist. I could feel like in this hour and like, I feel like it's an hour, a little bit over an hour and a half, every minute is used with purpose. Like, there is no wasted minute. And for the first half, I was absolutely on board with this movie because it was different from what the hype was telling me it was going to be. It was thought-provoking, and it was unnerving in part on a psychological level. It was reflective on a psychological level of people's day-to-day. And that is the greatest achievement behind this film, is that it's able to just grab these themes and then decorate this liminal space in meaning because these themes exist. Chiwetel is a middle-aged man who wanted to be an architect. And what does he end up doing instead? Selling furniture. So he is, in a very ironic way, filling the space of other architects with the furniture. That's gotta suck. The story of Chiwetel serves as a prologue to the story of the therapist, because you do have a story that is being told by two different characters, and they each serve each other, but one half of the film belongs to one character and the other half belongs to the other, and one would not hit as hard without the other. Like, they genuinely fit. There's literature out there about the Backrooms, right? People have filled in the lore. But what I find most interesting is that for me, when watching this film, it is less obvious on whether we created the Backrooms or if the Backrooms came first. And if the Backrooms came first, then the deeper meaning would be is how did we formulate this reality and settle into this sort of sedentary state of thinking and being from that space where anything is possible. I mean, for an hour and plus, 30 minutes plus, it does so much. It presents so many questions that are more interesting than its execution. We do have these analog moments of found footage that are very popular since the shorts. That definitely is in there as well, and I thought that it was really effective. It doesn't do anything super new or super crazy, but it does exactly what it needs to do within this liminal space horror. And this playground that we're in, the liminal space itself, as you progress to it, does have all the signature. It has the signatures that you would expect from, you know, the Backrooms as we've explored it through various media now, the games, stories. We do get the pool, and we get the optical illusions, and we get the slightly further distorted versions of these corporate offices as we move further in. You do get explanations of things that provide further questions, and that's how I liked it. I don't want answers to something. If the liminal space is so big that a single person should not be able to explain it away with a single venture. And I thought that the movie did a good job maintaining that suspense. But then we get into the negatives, which is, I do think that the last half is absolutely flat in its execution. The revelation of the entity is cool, but ultimately underwhelming and prolonged for it existed in frame for too long for me, and we kind of lost the cosmic mystery. Just by looking at something, it's crazy how you can just show something and suddenly the mystery is gone, the mystique has disappeared. I do think that the last half belongs to a much less interesting character than Chiwetel. I do think the therapist is almost hard to follow and like and connect with. And I just felt like going from focusing more on Chiwetel's character to then her just did such a disservice, because he is the far more interesting character that I wanted to follow, and I could give less of a fuck nipple about her. It's not a scary movie at all. At least for me, I didn't find anything fear-inducing. The discomfort is just in what could be, not what actually is. The hype that it's gotten feels very much out of balance with at least what I got. And I guess that's just up to personal preference, whether it lives up to what you expected or not. Now, I'm going to start with the spoiler review in a little bit. So you've got approximately to the end of the story I'm about to tell to leave. Or stay, because the story is actually interesting. You know, as I started talking about this film and doing this review, because the weather in Florida is so ass and it's attracting every critter in the world, just to this one location, there was a flying cockroach in my room that one hit my door. It sounded like someone fainted. And then that motherfucker did 3 squats and flew across my face and hit my fucking monitor. And at that point, all bets are off. I found the power. I became He-Man, and I squashed that motherfucker. You know, it's crazy how, like, they can survive nuclear explosions, but they can't survive sandals. Now, let's get to the juicy stuff of my spoiler review, because this is really where I kind of want to dig into what I really liked about this movie. And it's Chiwetel's character. I think that, you know, when you see him and he goes to therapy, the first thing you learn about him is that he left his house. He lives in his furniture store. And he does this role play thing with his therapist where she pretends to be his ex-wife. And the conversation that he has with her is very illuminating. You realize that all he has is this sense of righteousness for sacrificing so much so that she could pursue something in her career. And he feels like, even though he offered to do that, he feels like he is being held back. That sets the tone for his character. Later on in the film, you have this moment of realization where when the therapist finally comes to that she cannot in fact fix certain human issues with just simple words, and that therapy is not the end-all be-all of people realizing and acknowledging the things that they have going on, especially if you yourself don't have those things figured out. And the way that this happens is in a very strange dinner scene in the Backrooms, where she is hostage and Chiwetel has spent so much time in the Backrooms that he has lost a concept of time, he has lost the concept of self, and he is almost becoming one subconsciously with this space that is, as described by him, is a space that the more it remembers, the more it forgets. And it begins to, the people that show up, and there are other people that show up, copies of people within this liminal space, they all look like someone tried to create a human being. And there's a metaphor for it in this film, which is, if you describe a dog to someone who's never seen one and then ask them to draw it based on your description, you would get something that doesn't exactly look like a dog. You would get this sort of uncanny valley thing. And the humans you come across in this space are very much visual representation of that phrase that is used a couple times in this movie. And he is, in a lot of ways, almost resorting back to that. He is holding her hostage against her will, but for her own good. And you have this forced session between them, this forced therapy session, where a lot is brought to light. It's as if these Backrooms could very well be a manifestation of unbridled, uncontrolled, unfiltered regret, anger, and grief that is so strong and so palpable that it created this thing. Now, I'm not saying that is in fact what happened. I'm just saying that when you listen to the dialogue and you listen to the characters and you follow their arcs, something as strong as regret can do so much for a person. And I think that regret has to live somewhere. It has to do something. It has to be powerful. And I feel like the Backrooms is an answer to that. The creature that you see the entity is a distorted version of Chiwetel's character wearing the outfit that represents his furniture store, which is a pirate. And it's distorted version of him that is almost a manifestation of everything wrong with him in his life, that he's held back, that he's not honest about, and it's manifested into this, what is really the real version of him. It's almost like removing a tumor. This emotional tumor is that thing that's chasing him, and I thought that was provoking. That was thought provoking. The execution of the thing itself becoming the thing that chases the therapist, after that thing kills Chiwetel by eating him, as if eaten away by his own regret and his own grief. I thought that was profound. Then it just became a chase sequence, and I believe the guy who does the movement of the creature is the same guy who did the sort of hybrid alien Promethean creature at the end of Romulus. So he was in this, and he looked cool, and I liked the design. It looked uncanny and it looked weird, and I wanted it to be weird. But I think overall, just the entire chase sequence with him and the therapist was so long for no reason. It didn't really serve their purpose, because ultimately she ends up being found by the people who work for Async, who started out as a company that just built I believe MRI machines, and then in discovering this became something else completely, that now explores the Backrooms and tries to map it, because they just want to learn more. And when you meet this character who's played by the guy who plays Creep so well, his name's Phil in the movie, when you meet this guy, the only real answer you get, and this is how it should be for something this huge, the only answer you should get is, this thing is fascinating, we want to learn more, which also kind of points to humans' need to always want and discover and understand more, the sort of self-righteous, self-indulgent need to focus outside of ourselves and into something else, this external fascination with things that we have no business learning and understanding. And you just get this feeling that these people don't even know why they want to learn. The curiosity is what's getting them there. And this async, this whole corporate thing, it's also a facade. All the structure, all these rules, all these procedures, these hazmat suits, all these things that look official to us as human beings in a corporate world, with our with our CIAs, NSAs, FBIs, all our secret sectors, our private sectors, all this stuff, just so we could satiate our curiosity. And I just thought that also presented a really interesting thing. And again, I think this movie presents really interesting things, really interesting ideas that I don't think will land for everyone. And a lot of them didn't land for me, especially after that second act. And we get weird. The stuff with the dinner table was some of the best stuff in the movie, because you really, at that point, you sort of understand there are no rules here. Whatever governs this place is well beyond our understanding, and whether it's a fabrication of us or we are a fabrication of it doesn't matter. We will never know. And I think with that comes the idea of acceptance. And I don't think I'm reading too much into this, because I think that the liminal space, it's obviously it's all intended. Like, Parson wrote these characters this way for a reason. It is intended this way. And the fact that it's even got me speaking in this way tells me that he succeeded, even when he didn't execute everything the way I thought it should have been, because this is his movie. The way that he's making me think about these themes tells me that in a lot of ways he succeeded in what he intended to do. Even if the horror doesn't land, even if it's not scary, I'm still thinking about these themes. And I think that, again, it's another example of a horror film being better than any other genre and exploring something so deep, so intricately, and so thought-provokingly that even though it's a horror film, I'm not thinking about the horror aspects. I'm thinking about the questions it proposes. Yeah, this was a good thought piece, man. And even if I don't like a movie fully, if it gets me thinking, I'm on board. So anyway, that's Backrooms. Let me know what you guys think down below. And as always, I'll see you guys at the movies.